Okay, so today's webinar is on version 8 and version 9, Doc Designer and Screen Designer. Now, I'm in a version 8 copy right now, but version 8 and version 9 work almost identically. I will point out the differences that you may find in the version 9, but we'll get going. So first thing I'm going to start with is Screen Designer. And probably one of the most common areas to make screen design changes, get that out of my way, is in the inventory. So I'm going to go ahead and go merchandise and then inventory. I'm on a demo copy, so it's going to reset all of my quantities to 10. Magically, it doesn't cost me a dime. I magically get 10 of everything. Obviously, that wouldn't work in a real environment, but it works really well for training. Okay, so there's two portions to screen designing. There's making changes to your list, like this screen right here. There's also making changes to your forms. Now, the way that you're going to do this for each is slightly different. So in a list view, whether it's a list of inventory, a list of your POs, a list of your former receipts, a customer list, it's going to work the same way every single list that you need to change. So the first thing that you're going to do is right-click on any column header. It does not matter which one you choose, but it is important that you right-click on the column header itself. Now, you know that you've gotten on the column header if you get the option of interface. If you right-click down here, you'll notice that you do not get an interface option. Okay? So you right-click up on a column header and go to Interface and then Page Manager. Okay, now Page Manager is split into two halves. The left-hand side screen is all the different pages or tabs that we see down along the bottom. And depending on which tab or page you're highlighted on, it will dictate what fields you actually see on the screen. So as you can see here, we have item number, DCS, vendor code, description 1 and 2, attribute size, quantity, price, and cost. All the same fields we see here. If I click over to the price cost tab, then it's going to show me different fields, just like it would if I flipped over to that page exactly. Okay, so back on the item information page. Let's just say, for argument's sake, that I want to add in description 3. I found a use for what I want to use description 3 for. On the right-hand side, I'm going to scroll down below this thick black line. This line right here is the breaking point. Anything above the line is going to show on your screen. Anything below the line is not going to show on the screen, but can easily be moved above the line. So I'm going to scroll down until I find my description 3. Now, in version 8, this list is not in alphabetical order. In version 9, it is in alphabetical order, which does make it a little easier. So I'm just going to scroll down until I find description 3. Okay, there's my description 3. Once I find it, I'm going to double click it, and you'll see that it disappears. Where it disappeared to is right above that thick line. Once it's above the line, I can left click and drag it up into the place that I want it to sit. Okay, now you'll notice it does not show me the change on my screen yet. That won't happen until I click on Apply. Okay, let's say, for argument's sake, I change my mind and I don't want description 3 on there. A simple double click will jump it right below the line. I am going to put it back, though, so you can see the change. Now, in Page Manager, you can not only add to existing tabs, but you can make additional tabs. So up here along the top, you'll notice this very first icon says New. So it starts up a new page that I can change the name of. Now, in version 9, it won't allow you to just change it right here like you see. I actually have to use the rename option. So I'm just going to call this Tanya's. It's my special screen that I'm going to set up just for me. Okay? Now, I will caution you, when you create a new tab, by default, it puts every single field that can be on the screen gets put on the screen. So what I usually do first is I get all the way down to the bottom and I find that thick black line. And I put my mouse over it until I get that up and down arrow. Once I have that, I'm going to left click on it and hold down the left mouse and drag the line up. Because I don't want all of these fields on there. Okay? I do want item number on there. Okay? I want my DCS, my basic item information I want to see on there. Okay? I want to see attribute and size, maybe UPC and ALU, my season field, my clean house field. So I can put whatever fields I want to see on this screen. When I apply it, one, we see the description 3 that I added to the item information tab, but you'll also notice that I have the new tab along the bottom that has all of the fields that I put on my screen. Okay? Now, I realize that I'm missing item number, so I'm going to right-click again and go into Page Manager, and I'm going to look for item number. Somehow I lost it. Okay, so there's item number. Now, obviously, I want to move item number up to the top because that's how it is on all my other screens, and I want to try to keep it consistent. Okay? Now, you can also, in Page Manager, you can change the size of the font. So this first ABC is going to change the font of the different tabs along the bottom. So if I click here, you'll notice that as soon as it catches up with me, that it shows me that the writing is in red. Well, maybe I want to change that and make it blue. Okay? Maybe I want to make it a little bigger or a little smaller. So I would change my font size. Once I'm done, I click OK, then I apply it. And you'll notice that they got bigger and they're in blue writing now. Okay? I can also, in Page Manager, with this other ABC, this is going to affect the grid. So your title headers, the data inside this grid, that's what this is going to change. Okay? So I maybe want to make that bold, and I'll make it a size 10. Okay, and then I'll click OK. Once I apply it, those changes take effect. Okay? So that is Page Manager. Okay? Now, if you want to delete a page, like my Tanya's tab here, I don't need it anymore. I'm going to delete the entire page. Okay? That deleted it from there. Once I apply it, it will delete it from my screen. Okay? Any questions about Page Manager? And please feel free to raise your hand throughout the webinar today. I will not be offended. I'd rather that you interrupt me and ask your question while it's fresh in your mind than to try to remember what your question was at the end of the webinar. So any questions about when you would use Page Manager, how to use it, anything along those lines? Okay. Okay. Okay, so now, Jose, are you on version 9 or are you on version 8? Okay, so Jose's question was not sure if, you know, will it change it if you're, and as admin, will it change it for all employees? In version 8, yes. In version 9, unfortunately, no, it only changes it for the person that is actually, that the changes were actually made for. And I'm sure for those of you that are on version 9, you've discussed this with your trainer on repeated occasions, because it is one of those things that we go over with you on how to copy the screens from the sysadmin user down to all the other users and all the other workstations. For those of you on version 8, something to look forward to in 9, screen designs are held on a user-by-user basis on each individual machine. So if I set up my admin screens the way I want on Workstation 1, and then I go log into Workstation 3 under admin, my screens are not necessarily going to be the same unless I make them the same. So not only are they held on a user-by-user basis, but also on a workstation-by-workstation basis. Okay? Now, I will show you a way in, you're welcome, I will show you a way in version 9 in version 8 to copy the screens over between the workstations. In version 8, the screen designs are only held on a workstation basis. So if I make the screens the way I want on Workstation 1, anyone that logs into Workstation 1 sees those screen designs. I can easily copy those from Workstation 1 to any other computer that I want, but if I don't copy it over, I go over to Workstation 3, the screens are not going to be the same. Okay? So, okay. So I'm going to go ahead and minimize that again. Okay, now you may have noticed that when I right-clicked up here, I had an option of Layout Manager as well. Layout Manager is going to control what your Layout Manager is going to control what screens you actually see. Now, we don't use it a lot in the list view, but we do use it a lot in the form view. So if I go into form view up here and I right-click and go into Layout Manager, I have different layouts to choose from. So right now I'm on the default one. I could change it over to the standard and click Select, and you'll notice it changes my layout. So I can create different layouts within this one screen. Okay? Hang on just real quick for me. I'm sorry. Okay, I'm sorry about that. Okay, so I'm going to put it back to the default. Okay? We do see it more often with like I said, in the point of sale area than we do in inventory. So now, changing your form designs is a little more involved than changing the list designs. So, okay, so go ahead, you will right-click, go to Interface and Page Designer. Okay, so we go into Page Designer. And, okay, now once Page Designer is open, this window has to stay open as well. So you can't make any changes in here if you close this window. Now the very first thing that I want to show you is the Save button is right up here. Unfortunately, they put the Undo button right next to it. Now, in version 8, this is an exit without saving. So not only does it undo, it undoes everything. In version 9, fortunately, they did hear our cries for, not making it do that. And in version 9, it really does work like an undo button. It will undo whatever your last change was. Okay? But unfortunately, they put the two of those right next to each other. So I always caution people, be very, very careful that you are on the right button for what you want to do. Okay? So I'm going to kind of move that off to the side. Now, this very first icon right here is a fields icon. So when I click on it, it shows me all the groups that I have set up. So I have an item information group. I have an item information group. I have a user-defined group. I have a user-defined group, and so on and so forth. In this item information group, it shows me all of the fields that are in that group. Okay? Now, if I take an item out of there, so let's say I take description 4 out. I'll double-click it. It'll take it out of the group and put it back over in the available fields. It also changes it immediately on my screen, so I can double-check what I've done. If I rearrange things, maybe I want to put this up underneath description 3 and then realize that's not really the best place for it when I see it on my screen. I can move it back down to wherever I want it. Okay, there we go. Now, this last field over here is everything that is not already on your screen. So you see all of our auxiliary fields, mins and maxes, different company fields. These, fortunately, are in alphabetical order in both versions. Okay, so this shows me everything that I can potentially add to the screen. So I want to add the multi-vendor screen. So I'm actually going to scroll down until I find this option of vendors. I'm going to left click on this and drag it out onto the screen and then let it go. Okay? Now I usually will close that just to get it out of my way. Now I'm going to click on this vendors field and make it a little bit bigger, a little bit taller, and I'm going to move it where I want to see it. So I'm going to go right up along the edge here. Okay? Now that I have that on my screen, I can save my changes. And that saves whatever it is that I just did. Okay? I'm going to go back into Page Designer, though, because there's a lot more to show you. Okay, so this is probably the most commonly used option up here because it not only allows me to build a group and choose what items I put in there, it also allows me to drag things out onto the screen directly. Okay? Now, I can build a new group. So let's say that I want to have a field that shows me all of my minimum and maximum information. So I may make a group and call it min max. Okay? Now that I have that group created, you'll notice it automatically puts the first field from my available fields in there. It will not let you save it unless there's at least one field there. I'm going to come over, though, and I'm going to go company min, company max, company sold, received, and on order. Okay, I think I'll go company quantity, too. Now that I have fields there, I can get rid of the auxiliary. I'm going to move the quantity up so I see my current company quantity first, then I'll see what the minimum and maximum is, and then what we've sold, received, or have on order. But until I drag this group out onto the screen, I won't see anything. So as soon as I drag this out onto the screen and let it go, I now see the information there. Now, you may notice, if you're a little bit anal retentive, like I tend to be, you may notice that this box right here just doesn't quite look the same as everything else. And for those of us that are a little anal retentive, that just is going to drive us crazy. So one of the easiest ways to make them the same is highlight a group that looks the way that you want it. So I'm going to choose this first group. I'm going to hold down my Shift key and grab this group as well. Okay? This first one that you click on is your guideline. It's what everything is going to be copied like. So first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to come down to color. And I notice that this strip right up here is white, whereas this one is not. Well, I'm seeing white, so I'm just going to choose that same option. My header's now gone white. I notice that there's also some lines in here. Those are different bevels. So I'm just going to kind of look at each of the bevels, press enter, it'll put that bevel in there. There's different fonts too. The control font is the font up along the very top. Okay, so I'm going to click this one and just click OK. I'm going to come to this font. This font right here is the data that you actually see in here, like the 20s and the zeros. And I'm just going to copy that. Last, this label font is the titles. So I'm going to make those the same. Now when I look at these, they look very similar to what I'm seeing over here. All I did was tell it which one was the one I liked, and I told it to copy everything the same. Okay? So any question about setting up groups, adding new fields to the screen, anything along those lines? Because like I said, that is probably the most commonly used icon in the whole process. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and move on. If you think of a question, though, about the grouping, don't hesitate to ask me, even if we're long past it. Okay? Now this next icon that we have here is going to set the tab order. So when I open this, it shows me what order the tab is going to take me between the groups. So first, when I first click on New, it's going to put me in the Item Information tab. Then if I tab, it's going to take me over to User Defined. Then the Price Cost, then the Store Quantity, then the Min-Max. Maybe I wanted to stop in the vendors in between the User Defined and the Price Cost. So I'm going to actually take that out first and show you what the tab order looks like. So if I tab, I'm in Item Information, then I go to User Defined, then Price Cost, then Quantity, then Min-Max, and then back around. Okay? If I change my tab order and I add vendors to it and I make vendors part of the mix, okay, I start off in Item Information, I tab once, it goes to User Defined, tab again, it goes down to the vendor code, then it comes back up to Price, Quantity, and Min-Max. So the tab order takes you between groups. Now for the version 9 customers, you can actually click on a group and set the tab order, and it will let you dictate how the tab order moves within each group. Version 8, we don't have that availability. But so make sure in version 9, if you're wanting to change your entire screen, make sure that nothing is highlighted when you go to tab order. If you want to change the particular tab order in a grouping, make sure you highlight that grouping and then go to the tab order. Okay? Now this icon here, it just basically gets rid of the little bottom part of this box or brings it back. Nothing fancy. Okay? This button right here will add an active text link. So you could add a link to your website or to a vendor's website. I've used this quite a bit in the vendor file where, you know, I have all my vendors' information and I actually create a text link that is a link to their website. Okay, and you'll see that it basically lets you set it up. Okay, this little icon is going to create a navigation button. Okay, so I puts it up here on the upper left-hand corner. I drag it out to where I can see it, make it a little bigger, easier to read. That's going to give me a virtual 10-key section or a virtual keyboard. Okay, so for those of you that are limited on space at your point of sale and you don't really have room for a keyboard but you need the ability to type, you could use this navigation button to bring up the keyboard and then, you know, type whatever it is you're going to type. Okay? I'm going to take that off. It really works well when you have touch screens as well. You know, then you don't have to use the mouse to click everywhere. You can use your finger to type, just like you would if you were sending a text. Okay? We've talked about the save and the undo. You also have the ability to select a background. So if I click on Select Background, I'm going to go in and just grab a default picture. Okay, let's go Sample Pictures. Maybe not. Let's see. We'll just go with this. Okay, that's what I want as my background. So once I find the right picture, I click on Open. Now I have a new background. Now you can set this up. Okay, so let me see there. I know that there's a way to, that would drive me crazy. There's got to be a better picture I can choose. Anyway, I can't find a picture that's going to work well. So if I don't like it, I erase the background. Just that simple. Okay? Add it with this button, erase it with this button. I can also add a picture. Okay? So maybe I want that Big Hairy Dog logo, but I don't want it to to take up the whole background or to repeat itself like that one was. So I just want to put a picture of my logo right here on the screen. I can resize it, make it as big as I want, but it still is only the one picture. We do this a lot on the point of sale screens, okay, where when you're in a new receipt, if you're sitting on that new receipt, your logo is on that receipt, so anyone that happens to be walking by your register sees your logo as well. So it's all about the branding, okay? Now, if I want to take that off, I just simply click on it, press the delete key on my keyboard. I could have also used the delete key up here, okay? Now, this right here, the add label, I use this a lot for areas that people seem to have a hard time remembering what to do, or if I want to remind them to do something. So I'm going to back out of here, because where we do a lot of this kind of screen changing is in the receipt. So let me get into a new receipt. Wow. Okay. Then I go to new. I don't know why my computer's taking so long. So maybe I want to remind my staff to always remember to get these flags filled in. So I can right-click, go into Page Designer. I'll move that off to the side, and I'm going to make a label. And I'm going to let them know okay, I click OK. Now this little message right there, that's not going to get anybody's attention like that. So if I'm going to put a label on here that I want them to notice, I need to make it very visible. So I'm going to change the font and make it a font that is going to grab their attention. Okay, and maybe I make it red because I really want them to see it. Okay, now that is going to stand out. Okay, you can do this on any form screen that you want. Okay, so now that is going to pop up on every receipt screen that comes up. Okay, you also can add in an active picture link. I'll be honest with you, in 17 years, I don't know that I've ever used this particular function. I have never had anyone have a picture that they want to move, you know, that the picture actually moves. But if you had a little video clip or something like that, I'm sure that's what that would do. Okay? This adds an active button. So a lot of times we'll use this. Yes, I have a tender button over here on the side, but maybe I want to make it even more visible to my salespeople, and so I'm going to add another tender button right on the bottom of the screen, only I'm going to make this one really big. Okay, so I'm going to make the height 100. I'm going to make the width 200. Okay, now this may let me do the properties of it. So, well, okay. So it lets me put an active button on there. So if I put an item on my receipt, come on, okay, and I'm ready to tender out, I don't have to come all the way over to the tender button. I can just click on the tender button right here. This is how I make sure they don't forget to get it. I make it a required field. Okay, so as you hear about us through the radio, now I tender it out. Okay. Okay, I'm going to go back. Now, one big difference between version 8 and version 9, and for those version 9 people on the phone, you're probably going, wow, she's in there making changes as she's ringing up a sale. That would be really handy. In version 8, we could make screen changes in an active document. In version 9, you have to be on a former document to do it. In other words, I'd have to cancel this receipt, and I'd have to do it in a blank form of a previous receipt. Okay? Okay. I don't know why, but my computer is just really slow. Let me start closing out of some of these things down here. Okay. See what I can get rid of. There we go. Okay, I think that's a little better. So in 9, you would have to go into the form like this and then make your changes where you see the new button up in the corner. In 8, I can do it in an active document. Okay? Now, with Page Designer, especially, like I said, especially for those of us that are a little on the anal retentive side, I can actually make fields line up by using the Page Designer. So let's say I want this discount box to be lined up along the bottom with my subtotal box. So I'm going to highlight the one that's correct first, then hold down my Shift key, and then click on the one that I want to copy it after. And you'll notice I can align it to the left of it. I can align it to the right, to the top. In my case, I want to do it to the bottom. So I click on Align Bottom, and of course it does it the opposite way. So now if I want to manually move them, I can use my Control key and my arrow keys, and I can move them at the same time. Okay. Now I usually use the arrow keys. I could drag them around, but I usually, once I have them lined up, I usually like to use the arrow keys because it keeps everything in a straight line. I can go left, right, top, or bottom. Okay? There are, besides those 4, you do have equal vertical spacing. So like with these 2 boxes right here, let's say that I move this up a little bit, but I want these 2 boxes to be equally spaced. Okay? Well, and of course, it's not going to let me do it. To the bottom. I need a larger grouping of boxes. Let me show you with this one. This, and this, I can do equal horizontal space. So I click on that. It's already horizontal, but let's move this back over. Okay, so let's just say, for argument's sake, this one got moved way over, and I want to even them out. So I'm going to highlight the 3 and tell it to do equal horizontal spacing. It's going to figure out the proper amount of space in between each field. Vertical spacing does the same thing. So if I had 3 or 4 buttons, like in 9, you have a lot of buttons on your screen, on your receipt screen. If those were stacked and I wanted them evenly spaced apart, this icon right here would do what I was looking for. Okay? So those are some of the features of the Page Designer. Again, you will only use Page Designer when you are changing a form format. It is Page Manager when you're changing a list. Now, last but not least, over here on the side screen, you may want to get rid of some of the buttons on your side menu. You're going to right-click, go into Menu Designer. Okay? And so basically anything with a check mark is a button that will come up if I'm in a new receipt. So I'm going to go through here and I'm going to get rid of price level, spread discount, unspread discount. Okay? Now when in 8 you will see these lines, this is actually a separator line. So like this line you see right here, that's where that's coming from. In 9, you'll have an option at the top of your list that'll say separator. You just double click on that and move it wherever you want. Okay? Now, in version 9, you can change both your side menu and your top menu. In version 8, the only one that you can change is your side menu. Okay? You also, in Menu Designer, can move your buttons from the right to the left. So if I align left, you may be wondering, well, why would I want to do that? I'm right-handed. Why not keep it on the right? Because if I move it to the left, everything is much closer to the buttons I use all the time. I actually usually keep my Retail Pro, both 8 and 9, I leave on the left, and I'm very much right-handed. Okay? You also can come in and change the button height. You can, if I want to see these little shortcuts, or if I don't want to see them, I can uncheck this. And let me make the height, I'm going to make it a noticeable change. So I click OK. I lose my little shortcuts, and now my buttons are really big. But the problem is I may have made them too big. So I'll go back to Menu Designer, see what my last field is. So I am losing gift receipts. I need to cut this back some. Okay? Now my buttons are still good size, but I'm not losing anything off the side. Okay? So any questions about changing screens, anything like that, because after this I am going to go into Doc Designer. That's pretty much what your options are with screen designs. Okay. Okay. So I'm going to go ahead and keep pushing forward. Okay. So let me back out of here. Now, Menu Designer works on every side menu that there is. So if I want to make my buttons bigger here, I make them bigger here. Okay? I back out. I want to make the buttons bigger here. Usually we do recommend that you keep some consistency in what you do. Now, for those of you that are on version 9 and have recently worked with a trainer, you know that this is one of those things that we do as we're going through the training. We change the screens as we come along to them, and we find what things we need to change. Okay? Now, for both version 8 and for version 9, Doc Designer is going to be found under Tools. Okay? Now, in version 9, it's going to be part of your drop-down list, and it's going to require that you log in with your password. In 8, it's here on the side, and it's based on whoever is logged into Retail Pro. So if you get a message that you're not authorized to use Doc Designer, you need to talk to your system administrator about changing your security rights. Now, Doc Designer is used for every document that you're going to print out of Retail Pro, from your tags to your receipts to your POs to your transfers. Everything that can be printed, your XE out, everything is a design in here, is a doc design. And you will notice we just got about 30 new tabs to choose from. This is usually where I lose people. When I'm showing them Doc Designer, that first screen coming up with all these tabs, it's like, whoa, wait a minute. So just keep in mind that every area of Retail Pro has its own tab. So if I'm changing a PO, I'm going to look for the little tab that says PO. If I'm changing a voucher, I'm going to find the one that says voucher. Today, I'm going to change an inventory tag, so I'm going to go to inventory. Okay? Now, I have a few dozen different designs in here. So let me find one that's not one that's been cleaned up already. I want to find one that's a default. Okay, let's go with, oh, we don't want webinar normal. Let me see if I can find one. Okay, I'm going to go with the in basic because this is a default that comes from the developer, and every single one of you will have this design, whether you're version 8 or version 9. Okay, so I click OK. Now, here's a little secret that I like to share with people. When you're working in Doc Designer, it is very helpful to make things a little bit bigger and easier to work with. As you can tell, this is fairly small and finite, and sometimes getting a big field into a small area is a little difficult. Now you'll notice there is a zoom option up here, but my secret to you is if you use the plus key on the 10 key section of your keyboard, it will make it bigger, even bigger than what the zoom can do for you. The minus key makes it smaller. So if you get it too big, you can shrink it down a little bit. Okay? Now, if you notice, I don't have a 173 option in here, but with my plus key, I got that. And it only works with the plus key and minus key on the 10 key section. It drives me crazy when I'm working on my laptop because I don't have a 10 key on my laptop. It doesn't work with the plus and minus key along the top with the numbers. So I do have to use the zoom when I'm making designs on my laptop. First thing I always recommend when you come into Doc Designer for the first time, come up here to this little green check mark and make sure that Display Advanced Properties has a check mark and Expands Field Tree has a check mark. You're going to want both of those to work in the Doc Designer. And once you've checked them once, you shouldn't have to check them again. Okay? The next thing that I do is while I'm still on the properties of the entire design, let me move this down a little bit, so you can see there's 4 tabs over here. I'm on the Properties tab right now. Miscellaneous gives me some various things that aren't included anywhere else. The Design Tree basically shows me the hierarchy of what's on my design. And the fields are all the fields that I can put on my design. So while I'm still at the Properties tab for the entire design, I want to make the access level an access that everybody has access to. So if I ask my new cashier to go print me an extra tag, that new cashier is going to have rights to do that. Okay? So I'll click OK. That's going to make it available for everybody. Okay? The second thing that I'm going to do is I need to make the page right, the paper size right on this. Right now, it has the height of this paper at 4.17. Now, for any of you that use our normal size tags or hang tags, you know that they are not 4 inches tall. They're actually 2 1/4 inches tall. So I'm going to change this to 2.25. Okay, shrinks it down. The width of this is actually 1.25. Okay? And we are looking at this portrait. I need to turn landscape. There we go. Okay? I wondered why it was looking strange. So now you'll notice on the paper there is this gray box in here. This gray box is actually what we call a band. Okay? Oh, you know what? I think maybe I did get it backwards. This is 1.25 and 2.25. There we go. Okay, we'll change this back to portrait. There we go. Okay? So it's important that my paper size is correct. I have to make my band size correct. You'll see that technically my band is outside of the paper size. So I'm going to fix my height to be 1.25. My width is already correct. So once I do that, okay, so you see, well, no, that's not right, proportional width. Okay, so why is it not letting me? Okay. So I'm going to go to the design tree. You see this little thumbtack right here. This little thumbtack is letting me know that this particular area is locked for editing, meaning that I can't change anything. Well, I want to change it. So I'm going to right-click on it and click on Lock Band, and that's because it's already locked, that's going to unlock it. So now you'll notice that my thumbtack goes away. I can lock it back when I'm done, and it puts the little thumbtack back on it. If it has the thumbtack, it is locked. Okay? Now if I come back over here and I say I want my height to be 1.25, because it's been unlocked, it will do as I asked. And you'll notice that now my band size matches my paper size. okay? And the reason that I start with a tag design is because a tag design is probably the easiest design to work with because you only have the one band. It's very set paper size, and you don't have to worry about different types of bands. You just worry about what's going in them. We will look at some designs where there's multiple bands within bands. Like on your receipt design, there are bands inside of bands. Okay, and we'll look at that as well. Now, when I'm making a new tag, one of the first things that I always do is I get rid of everything that I don't want. Now, surprisingly, I'm going to get rid of this barcode because if my item has a UPC on it, the manufacturer has been kind enough to already put that on the product. I don't need to print a tag to duplicate the barcode that's already on there. If I'm going to print a tag, it's because I want the item number barcode to go on there, or in version 9, the ALU to go on there. Okay? Now, once I get rid of that, I also don't want the item number up here. I don't want the DCS name. I maybe don't want the discontinued date. I definitely want the price. I want the department, the vendor, the description 1, 2, attribute, and size. I want to keep all of those. So now I know how much room I have to work with, and I am going to rearrange these. Well, the first thing that I want to do, because on a tag, the two most important things that are on a tag is a barcode that you can scan and the price so the customer knows how expensive it is. Okay? So I have my price, but I need a barcode. So I'm going to come over here to my Fields tab. And you'll notice in version 8, I have these 3 options as potential barcode types. In 9, you have a few more. You'll have like multi-UPC, multi-ALU. So they all basically, they are just different formats of barcodes. I want an item number barcode though. So I'm going to bring this over here and put it on my screen. Now I kind of want to move it around, and I can left click and drag it. You know, I can do like this. Or I can use my control key and my arrow keys, and I can move it as well. Okay? So a little too much, so I'm going to move it back up. Now I'm going to move my price and move that over here. And I think I'm going to make it a little bit bigger because I want my price to stand out against everything else on the tag. Okay? Now, I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to take my barcode and I want to line my price up to where it's at the level of the bottom of the barcode. So I'm going to highlight that one. Up here at the top we have 2 little blue arrows. These will give you all of your alignment options. So I want to align it to the bottom. Okay? Now, once I've done that, I'm going to highlight the inventory field and go back to the properties of it because I want to deal with the changes I want to make to this. So right now, I think I want to make my font a little bigger. So I'm going to go to the font line. I see that it's a font that I don't like to use on my tags, so I'm changing it to Arial. I want to make it bold, and I'm going to, it's a size 8 right now. I'm going to make it a size 12. Okay? Now I can see that I may need to make my box just a little bigger. Now, there's another trick you can do to make your price stand out. And that's by framing this particular field. So you'll see right underneath font, we have the option of frame. So I'll open that up. I'm going to give a top line weight of 1. I'm going to arrow down, do a bottom line, do a left line, and do a right line. Okay? Now, you'll notice that it looks like it's put a line around the whole thing. If you want to take a look to see what it looks like, up in the upper left-hand corner, you have a little magnifying glass that lets you preview it. So I preview it, and I can see that the box around it looks good, but now that I'm looking at it, I don't like the alignment I have. I think I'm going to align it to the top of the barcode rather than the bottom. So I close my preview, highlight the barcode because that's the one that is positioned correctly, hold down my Shift key and grab this field, and then I'm going to align it to the top. Okay? I'm going to click anywhere and look at my preview again. That, to me, looks a little bit better, a little more aesthetic. okay? Now, I also need to deal with the properties of my barcode. So with the barcode, if you put the barcode on yourself, I do want to let you know that for most tags, we use a code 128. For jewelry tags or smaller, we use a code 205IL. So this one right here. Okay? It's the way that the barcode is created. Okay? Now, I also turn on the high quality. I want nice sharp lines in between the black and the white. And I'm going to make my barcode length 6. So that way it actually has it with some zeros, but all of my barcodes are equal length, so all of my barcodes look similar. If I change it back down to 0, you'll notice that the barcode, I have really thick lines and really thin lines. With everything being 6 characters, they're all going to be similar in size. Okay? Now for those version 9 customers, that's especially important. You want to set your barcode length to however many characters your ALU is set for. Most typically we set it for 6 characters, but if yours is more, set it for however many characters your ALU is. Okay? You can choose to include the text or not include it. I like it because if this barcode doesn't scan for whatever reason, I can manually type in the number. You can have the text go above it if you want. Okay, I like it below it because that's the way UPCs look. Okay, but again, it's all a preference of what you want your tags to look like. Okay? Okay, so now that I have the 2 most important fields that I want on there, now everything else is extra and I can fiddle around with it. So for this size tag, I do have the room to put a logo on there. So first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to come over here to miscellaneous, and you'll notice that there's an option to insert an image. So I'm going to left click on that, bring it over to my band, and left click it again. Now not all of it is within the band, but that's okay. We're going to take care of that. Okay, I'm going to go to the properties of this. So the first thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to check off the stretch to fit and the center picture. So it does not matter how big the picture is, how small it is, how off-center it is, Retail Pro is going to center it for us. Okay? So now I'm going to manually change my fixed height and width. So if I make my fixed width just an even 1, okay, it immediately got smaller. I can come up to my fixed height and I can make it 0.5. Okay? So I can, once I get it to where I can see all of these outside edges, then I can drag it and make it however I want. Now that I have the box there, I have to find the position I want to put it in. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to move all of these out of the way. Okay, well. Oh, and FYI, there is no undo in Doc Designer. So just be aware of that. You know, be very careful. Save periodically. Okay, now I'm just moving these out of the way because where I want to put my logo is in this upper left-hand corner. So I'm going to drag this up and get it as close to the edge as I can, but if I want to get it closer, you'll notice on the Properties tab, there's a distance from left. I'm going to make this 0, okay? I'm going to come down to distance from top. I'm going to make it 0. I want it right up against the edge of the band. Now I am going to shrink this down because I know my logo is going to look better as a square. Okay, so now that I have that on there, I have to tell the computer what picture we're going to use. So on the Properties tab, I'm going to come over here to Picture, and I'm going to point it in the direction of where my picture is. Okay, and mine, I'm just going to go into my libraries again, and we'll go with this. Okay. I don't know what happened to my sample pictures, but okay, so I click OK. It puts my logo on there. Now I can make it bigger, I can make it smaller, But keep in mind, you don't want your whole tag to be logo with very little information on it. So now with this information on there, I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to move my DCS as close to my logo as I feel comfortable with. And I'm going to make the distance from top 0.02. I don't want it to print right along the edge. I want there to be a little bit of spacing in there. Okay, and I'm going to make that a little bit wider. I'm then going to take my vendor code field, and I'm going to move it over to the right, again, staying within this band. Okay, now I can take the DCS as my guideline, hold down my Shift key and click on vendor code, and align this to the top of each other. Okay, I can also adjust the width. Okay, now by doing that, I've actually made my vendor code field too wide for the band that it's in. So I needed to bring it in a little bit. Okay, distance from left, I'm just going to increase this slightly. Okay, so now my first line of my tag, I see the department code it belongs to, I see the vendor code it's with, then I'm going to see my description 1. So I'm going to highlight the DCS, click on the description 1 and description 2, and I'm going to align them to the left of each other. Okay? So now everything is lined up on this side. Now you may notice, you may be looking at it going, but your fields are overlapping. How can you overlap your fields? I will show you here in just a minute. Okay? Even though they are overlapped, when I go to the preview, they are not overlapped. They're a font I don't like, but they're not overlapped. Okay? So I'm going to close this. I'm going to change my font on all of these fields. Default is MS Sans Serif, and it's not a really clean font for tags, so I almost always use Arial. Now, because my logo is taking up as much room as it is, I am going to leave it on narrow because I'll get more information that way. Okay? So now all of these fields are in the same font. I'm going to take these 3 fields, and I'm going to tell the computer, figure out equal vertical spacing between those. Okay? So now when I look at the preview, no problem. They're all equally spaced. I can read all 3 lines. There's even more room if I needed to make more room. Okay? Now, my size and my attribute field. What am I going to do? I'm going to move the attribute over here and the size over here. Also, before I forget, I want to make these 2 fields slightly wider because I want them to go up along the edge of the, there we go. Okay. Okay. So I'm going to take the description 2, click on the attribute, left justify or align left for the attribute. Then I'm going to click anywhere on the design, do description 2 and size, and align to the right of that one. Okay. Now this looks to be about positioned correctly, so I'm going to use that as my guideline, hold down the Shift key, and align attribute to the top of it. Okay? Now, I'm going to make this as wide as this. So I'm going to adjust width. I'm going to use the vendor code as the guideline for my size. I'm going to adjust the width and then align it right again. Okay? Now, size is one of those fields that I really like to stand out because especially if you are a clothing store, you carry clothing, the first thing that a customer looks at when something catches their eye, they look at most people will look at the price and decide if they feel it's worth the money that you're asking for. If they determine that, then the next thing that they're doing is they're looking for their size to see how it looks on them. So I make the price really big. I like to make the size really big as well. Okay, so I'm going to make this narrow bold, but we're going to increase the size a little bit. Okay, now I also want to have my size be right justified. So over here on my Properties tab, by default everything is left justified. I want to right justify this. I want to do the same for my vendor code. Okay? So when I look at this in the preview, okay, the vendor code and the size are over here, all the descriptions are over here, price is nice and big, but I think I want to make it bigger and I want to center it. So I'm going to close that, highlight my price. Right now it's right justified, I want it centered. And I also want to make my font and that field a little bigger. So let's make it a 16. We'll make it bigger this way. Make it bigger this way. And then we'll line it up. Line right. Okay. So again, we look at the preview. There's your preview. Very easy to read. Now you can align the text. So this field right here, the text alignment is centered, but the text layout is on the top. I want to center this as well. Now it doesn't look like it changed on the screen, but when you look at the preview, it just looks more centered. I could also change it to be to the bottom, which when you look at the preview, puts it more towards the bottom half of that square. Okay, so, but for this I do want it centered, so I'm going to leave it there. Now, here's the true test. I'm going to come up to File and Save As, and I'm going to label this Webinar 090716. Okay? And I save that. The true test, though, is going into inventory, picking an item or 2 or 5 that I can test with. What I usually try to do is find the ones with long descriptions, long colors or sizes. So I'm going to use this item as an example. Come over to Print Tags. My tag is all the way down near the bottom. So I'm going to choose this one right here. Click OK. And then preview it. There's the tag that we designed. Department code, vendor code, product number, description, and I still see I have quite a bit of more room. The color, the size, the price, everybody's happy. Okay? Any questions about what we just did? Okay. Okay then. So I'm going to go ahead and get into a couple of other designs just to show you some of the differences. The functionality is generally the same. Make sure that you click on the lower X. You have 2 X's in the corner. Click on the one that's lower. That will close the one design you're working on, but it doesn't. The top one closes the entire Doc Designer. So now I want to open a new file. I'm going to go to Open. I'm going to find my tab. I'm going to go to the Receipt tab. Okay? And I'm just going to scroll down. Okay. There we go. Okay. So now the receipt, with a receipt or a PO or a voucher, with any of those documents, we have to account for any possibility. So in a receipt, we have to make sure that every tender type is on the receipt, because you never know how a customer is going to pay. We have to include the customer's name if you're going to. And so there's a lot more to a receipt design than there is to a tag design. And you can see that firsthand if you go to the design tree. These are all different bands. Now, within a band like this detail band, there's 2 more bands within it. Same with this header general. Okay? So you're seeing multiple bands within a single band. Okay? Now, sometimes they're labeled, sometimes they're not. Like the RE band 4, what the heck is that? Well, that's this first band up here. And what's in here right now is the system date, which is right up here, the date you printed the receipt, and then an image folder file so I can put a logo. Okay? So I'm going to put my logo on there just like I did the tag. I have the field on there, stretch to fit and center picture are both there. I'm going to make a little bit more room because I know my logo is going to need it. Okay. Okay. And then I'm going to point it in the direction of the picture I want. Okay. So now I can reposition it, figure out if I have the right dimensions. There we go. That's a little cleaner. Bring that band right up there. So now how that's going to look is I see the preview and I can see that there's just enough room in here that it looks good. Okay. Now, store headings. Your store headings are held in your preference file, but you're just telling the computer, I need store heading 1 or store heading 2. For the version 9 customers, it's address 1, address 2, address 3. Okay? They're not actually called headings. So now I need to get down in here, but I want to see the whole band. So easiest way to do that is highlight the band and then highlight the band within the band. If I go to the bottom center box, I can drag it down and make it a little taller and easier to work with. And again, I can make my design bigger with the plus key. Okay, now all of these fields in here, watch what happens when I try to move this field. Okay, it looks like it moved, right? But no, it didn't. Okay, that's because this is what we call an align with top. Okay, so this one is aligned with the top of the band. This one is aligned to the field right above it, and so on through the line. Okay, if I uncheck this, so if you wanted to add, let's say that I wanted to add a field in between here, maybe the phone number field. Okay, I'm going to highlight from the bottom band, I'm going to uncheck the align with top, and then move this field down a little bit. Take the next one, uncheck the align with top. Next one, align with top. Now, if it moves it down enough, I don't mess with it. But if it doesn't, I want to move it down myself. Okay? So I've made room now for that to go in there. Now I need to go and grab the phone number field. So I'm going to go to Fields. And actually in version 8, the store heading fields is where we would put the phone number anyway. Version 9, you do have a separate phone number field. So, let's see, I don't know what other field I would want to add to this. So I'm just going to put everything back because everything that I want is there. Now there's also another setting that you may notice that says remove if blank. So if I don't have a store heading 5, it just doesn't print it, and whatever is below it shifts up. If this one's blank, then everything else on the design shifts up. Remove if blank is really, really common if you're making changes to a receipt design, because a lot of this is going to be remove if blank. If there's no SO number, remove it. If there's no, if there's no associate, remove it. Now, this one we don't have set that way, but we will. Okay, so I'm just bringing that back up. So now I do want to show you the bands within the band. So close this up a little bit, and we're going to look at the detail band. Okay, so the detail band is showing me the detail of the item. So there are different bands. If I highlight this band, you'll notice up here it says design header. That means that this is going to print on the top of the first page of the design. If I set this to page header, it's going to print on the top of each page of the design. So if I have a 3-page PO, this band up here would print on the top of all 3 pages. As a design header, it's going to print on the top of the first page regardless of how many pages it is. Okay? Now down here, this is my detail band. So in order to show individual items on any document, the items have to be in a detail band. There's no other way around it. Otherwise, the receipt could have sold 5 items. It's only going to show you the first one. It's not going to show you every single item. So absolutely critical that you do that. But within this detail band, I have header columns. Okay? So my header columns are what we call a band header. They're not at the top of the page. They're not printing on every page, but I do want them to print at the top of this detail band. So they are a header to my detail band. The items underneath it are in an actual general band because they are within the detail band and they'll give me what I need. Okay? Now it is important for these items, if they're going to be general, that right here, the data field name is pointing towards the inventory items. So you're going to scroll down until you see receipt item and then click OK. So it knows these are only going to be found in the items that are on the receipt. Okay? Now the last band here, now within that receipt item band, we also have a discount detail, and we have a band that is nothing more than a blank space to give some room in between the multiple items they buy. Okay? So now, if you need any help creating your own doc designs, you really want to give it a shot and you want to do your own doc designs, we are more than happy to help you learn how to do your own designs and kind of hold your hand through the first couple. So if you need any help making a doc design, don't hesitate to schedule some time with your trainer. We're always happy to help you out here. Now, for my version 9 customers that are online with us, you'll find if you are using Crystal Report Writer, you're making your own reports, you'll find that Doc Designer will probably come very easy to you because it is very much like Crystal Reports or vice versa. For those version 8 customers that can't stand Doc Designer, you just never seem to get a hold of it, you probably would not be a good candidate to make your own reports in version 9. For those version 8s that love Doc Designer, you'll probably feel right at home with the Crystal Report Writer. Okay? So any questions whatsoever, I don't have anything new to show you other than we can just keep messing around with designs and putting it back. So any questions or anything specific you've been trying to do with your doc designs? Okay. No questions at all? Well, then let me open this up for any questions about Retail Pro at all. Okay. Okay, then. So on that note, then, if you guys don't have any questions, I will let you get back to work. I do want to thank you for joining me for the Screen Designer and Doc Designer webinar for both version 8 and version 9. Like I mentioned at the beginning, this webinar was recorded, and it will be up on our YouTube page, Big Hairy Dog. It will be up on our YouTube page within the next couple of days. So thank you again, and please join us for any future webinars that pique your interest. Thank you. Bye-bye.